From stories around the world to stories here at home, this is the national news broadcast on Channel I. I'm Dilanjali Ananda.
A very good evening indeed. I'm Charita Miniprarachi, and now let's move on to the headlines for tonight's news.
The blaze of the vessel in the Eastern Sea controlled. Oil reserves secure. The former Premier acknowledges that certain actions taken by the Anti-Corruption Secretariat established during the good governance regime were against the law. Lawyers state that the 20th Amendment strengthens national security. A project to provide drinking water for all households around the clock is to be implemented over the next 5 years.
For those and other stories in detail. Former Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe, recording evidence before the Presidential Commission of Inquiry into Political Victimization, acknowledged today that certain actions taken by the Anti-Corruption Secretariat established upon the approval of the National Executive Council during the good governance regime were against the law. Former Premier Ranil Wickremesinghe appeared before the Commission pertaining to a complaint filed by former Secretary to the Ministry of Economic Development, Dr. Nihal Jayatilaka. The Presidential Commission of Inquiry queried of the former Premier as to under which legislation the National Executive Council was established. In response, former Premier Wickremesinghe stated that it was not a body instituted under the law. He further stated that what was known as the National Executive Council was a committee comprising various political parties, civil organizations and professional representatives who supported former President Maithripala Sirisena at the 2015 presidential election. He added that himself, then President Maithripala Sirisena, JVP leader Anurakumara Dissanayake, then ministers Dr. Rajitha Senaratne and Patali Champika Ranawaka and TNA leader R. Sampanthan functioned as members of the council. The Justice Chair in the Presidential Commission stated that according to the evidence received, seemingly the National Executive Council has functioned above the Cabinet of Ministers. Former Premier Wickremesinghe responded stating that the National Executive Council was not vested with power superseding that of the Cabinet. The Presidential Commission raised the question on whether it does not result in suspects being labelled as guilty when cabinet approval is given for raids to be carried out, arrests to be made, interrogations to be conducted and legal action instituted upon details received at the Anti-Corruption Committee established upon the approval of the National Executive Council of the Good Governance regime. In response, former Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe drew the attention of the Presidential Commission to the plight he himself faces as he has been labelled as the bond thief, although the Bond Commission and the Parliament have determined that he has no connection with the central bank bond scam. He added that, however, the media do not accept this. So, when an allegation is voiced, it is natural for preconceptions to surface. At this point, the Presidential Commission queried of the former Premier as to whether he was pressurized by the committee in question to take certain actions. The former Premier responded, stating that ultimately those who accused him of not catching thieves and others who defected have deserted him. The Presidential Commission then inquired from him as to whether the investigation of complaints received at the Anti-Corruption Secretariat were directed to the IGP and whether certain special complaints were directly sent to the DIG in charge of the respective division. The former Premier responded, stating that the Anti-Corruption Secretariat did not implement everything and certain aspects were against the law. At this point, the Commission queried as to whether approval was received by the then Cabinet for the actioning of illegal procedure. Former Premier Wickremesinghe responded, stating that instructions were provided for suitable action to be taken. He further stated that as it is necessary to ascertain as to what action is suitable and what is unsuitable, the police were instructed to obtain advice from the Attorney General and take suitable action. The Presidential Commission of Inquiry queried as to where the meetings of the Anti-Corruption Committee were held. In response, the former Premier stated that until a permanent office was provided, the meetings were held at Temple Trees. He added that the meetings were attended by a group including JVP leader Anurakumara Dissanayake and Attorney-at-Law J.C. Valiamuna, who was a member of the Anti-Corruption Committee, functioned from the Presidential Secretariat. The Presidential Commission of Inquiry also questioned the former Premier on whether he was aware that then Foreign Minister Mangala Samaravira signed the 30-1 resolution put forward by the USA alien war crimes committed in Sri Lanka. Former Premier Wickremesinghe responded stating that the entire cabinet of ministers, including then Foreign Minister Mangala Samaravira, were aware of the proceedings. At this point, the chairman of the Presidential Commission inquired as to whether then President Maithripala Sirisena was also educated on the matter. Former Premier Wickremesinghe responded stating that the former president was also aware as the move was approved by the entire then government. Former Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe arrived at the Presidential Commission of Inquiry into Political Victimization at around 10 a.m. this morning and left after an evidence recording of 5 hours.
The Sri Lanka now states that the blaze of the empty new diamond fuel tanker in the Eastern Sea area was controlled to a certain extent by this evening. The Navy states that the vessel has floated to a close proximity of 22 nautical miles off the coast of Sangam and Kanda due to the tides and currents. The Navy, however, states that so far it has been observed that there is no risk of the flames spreading to the fuel reserves of the tanker. Meanwhile, Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa has instructed the relevant officials to take maximum measures to prevent the possible environmental damage to the oceanic environment. The vessel belonging to the government of Panama reported of the fire while en route from the Mina Al Ahmed port at Kuwait to the Pradeep port in the state of Odisha in India, while sailing at 38 nautical miles in the Sangam and Kanda coast. The vessel, which was 333 meters in length, reached a height of 60 meters and is categorized under the extra-large category of tankers. This vessel is reportedly large in size than the Japanese fuel tanker that faced a similar incident at Mauritius recently. The Sri Lanka Air Force have deployed 2 Mi-17 and Bell 212 times helicopters douse the blaze. These helicopters have released water onto the vessel 30 times since this morning. As the engine of the tanker is dysfunctional, the vessel is reportedly being floating towards the coast by the waves, and as of 5 a.m. this morning, it was observed around 25 nautical miles close to land. The Navy reports that the control cabin area at the rear of the vessel is still burning. A squad of Navy specialized in marine fighting is being deployed to fight the blaze upon studying the plan of the vessel on the instructions of its Greek captain. In addition, vessels of the Sri Lanka Navy, Sairala, Sindhurala and Ranavisi have also been deployed to the firefighting operation together with 2 tugs from the Hambantota port, a vessel belonging to the Indian Navy and 2 vessels belonging to the Indian Coast Guard. Meanwhile, the shipping company to which MT New Diamond belongs is scheduled to dispatch another vessel with specialized equipment to assist in this operation tonight. The Sri Lanka Navy states that there is no possibility for the fuel carried in the tanker to float towards the land. Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa has instructed the relevant officials to take maximum measures to prevent damage that could be caused to the oceanic environment. The Prime Minister's office, issuing a statement, directs for every possible step to be taken through a 24-hour joint operation to prevent environmental damage that could result due to the burning vessel. This joint operation includes 15 institutions with the Marine Environment Protection Authority, which comes under the Ministry of Urban Development and Housing and the Incident Management Team.
Meanwhile, the Sri Lankan Navy says a Filipino seaman on board the Mount Diamond, an oil tanker caught on fire while sailing 38 nautical miles off Sangamankanda Point, east of Sri Lankan seas yesterday morning, had died in a boiler explosion. Sri Lanka Navy, Sri Lanka Air Force, Sri Lanka Ports Authority and the Indian Navy and the Indian Coast Guards are currently working together to control the fire that erupted after an explosion of a boiler in the main engine room of the oil tanker. This was stated at a press briefing held this afternoon in Colombo.
We have identified the worst case scenario. We are getting ready for that. But we hope that it will never happen because right now we are very confident that we are in a position to curtail and contain the fire and the way it is going on. This morning we had a report. The CEO of the Indian Coast Guard vessel reported to his headquarters that what he sees in his naked eye. So he reported that there's a crack on the port quarter of the ship, and what he has observed, he has reported, and that same report has come to us. Now these cracks are because of the intense heat. The fire is mainly contained to the port quarter of the ship. If I be more precise, it is right under the superstructure toward the port side. Even in the images, you will be able to see this thing. When you have intense heat in one place for quite a long of time, naturally the steel plates get deformed, the welding line get cracked, and you will start to see these cracks. It's going to happen. It's very natural. But it doesn't mean the ship is breaking apart. It doesn't mean that the spill is going to take place. There's no threat of that. Now remember, this ship is 20 meters of draft. That is from the waterline, 20 meters, 60 feet underneath, you still have the ship. That is where the real strength of the ship lies. So these cracks are very important for us to analyze things. Best case scenario, we control the fire, put the expert team on board with couple of the ship's crew. They tow up, and then the owners take the ship where they want to take it. That is the best case scenario. The worst case scenario, because of the intense heat, if we cannot control the fire for maybe for 5, 6, 7 days, the hull crack, ship break, snap, and then it start tilting. If that happens, obviously we will have to put the surface booms. In fighting oil, there's something called boom laying. So you encircle the complete ship. Now the ship is 333 meters. So on one side you need 350, other side you need 350, that is 700. And further, let's say 700 on the front and back. So 1500 meters is quite enough to encircle it. Now remember, this is 20-meter draft, and there's an intense pressure inside, underneath the water. And that pressure itself limits the oil spill, anything coming out. These are practical experience in the trade, in these scenarios. So we are aware of that. Indian Navy is aware of that. Indian Coast Guard is aware of that. Our own officers are aware of that. So I am sure with that we will be able to curtail, and we will need definitely the international support to clean up the oil spill if it ever happens. In 2009, there was a motor tanker Granma that with sulfuric acid that sank off Trincomalee. So MIPA pursued the legal action, and we got the compensation. So that is where the authority lies. So we'll be mobilizing their legal expertise on that line.
If there's any oil spill occurs, yes, definitely we'll have to take criminal action against the connected parties. We are actually given instruction, the consultation by AG's department at the moment, and also in our act actually given us the authority to get the criminal compensation, as well as we can go for civil liability as well. And also, because we are being a part of this civil liability convention as well as fund convention, there's a possibility for us to claim the insurance also for the loss occurred to Sri Lanka, direct and indirect. We are looking at the moment is to get all the stakeholders in place and get some impromptu assistance from the rest of the stakeholders. Basically, now when the oil spill occurs, it actually gets emulsified. It becomes a kind of sludge actually, as you correctly mentioned. So basically, collecting and disposing will be the only option that we have, and also for that, it will take a lot of time, maybe 3-4 months, and we'll have to actually employ a lot of human resource, and it actually will be a severe disaster. We are trying maximum best to get down international support with the regional support as well as some of the experts in overseas. Actually, as the national authority to take care of this oil spill, combat oil spill, we actually in partner with DMC Disaster Management Center as well as many other organizations like Navy, Coastal Guard, Sri Lanka Police, likewise. We are partnered, and we are developing at the moment. The entire team is at Disaster Management Center. They are developing a comprehensive plan to combat if any kind of oil spill occurs. And this actually will be a huge, severe disaster, one of the biggest environmental disaster that would have happened in the world.
If this happened, it is the worst type of incident in the world, what she just mentioned. So, of course, she was trying to refer into this event versus the resources that we have. But we believe that we are capable. Nothing impossible. We will try our best to protect our people and the coast and everything.
Now, the supertanker fire off Sri Lanka's coast and a recent oil spill off the island of Mauritius has brought the dangers of moving large quantities of oil by sea back under the spotlight. However, the numbers of accidents involving spillages has fallen in recent years, according to the International Tanker Owners Pollution Federation. In the 1970s, there were about 80 spills a year of more than 7 tons. This has fallen to an average of just 6 per year over the past decade, despite a large increase in the number of tankers now transporting oil. This improvement, according to the ITOPF, is down to tighter regulation and improvements in safety standards. Some of the largest spills were between 1978 and 1991, and of all the large oil spills reported since 1970, only about 4% occurred after 2010. There is, however, a big problem with the available data. It does not include small oil spills, that's less than 7 tons, which the ITOPF says account for more than 80% of all oil spills at sea. The organization says information on these small spills is difficult to gather and often incomplete. The environmental campaign group Greenpeace says any oil spill should be a source of concern because of the damage caused. Greenpeace further says it is also concerned that ITOPF figures do not include every single type of vessel which could be transporting oil, so could be missing some accidents. The ITOPF says its data covers not just oil tankers but also bulk carriers, which carry oil and other goods, floating oil storage vessels as well as barges. So this would include the ship of Mauritius, which was a bulk carrier. Some of the largest oil spills did not have a major impact because they occurred far offshore. Others, which were not quite as large as the Exxon Valdez spill in Alaska, caused huge damage because of where they occurred. The recent MV Wasco spill off Mauritius, although it didn't leak a huge amount of oil, is near to protected marine ecosystems and a wetland of international importance.
And meanwhile, President Gotabaya Rajapaksa reviews future stages of the program to provide clean drinking water to all households for all 24 hours of the day before the end of 2025. President points out the need to expedite the program while paying special attention to the cleaning and conservation of rivers, streams and catchment areas. A discussion was held at the Presidential Secretariat yesterday on the future activities of the State Ministry of Rural and Regional Drinking Water Supply Projects Development. Water for All is a flagship pledge made to the people by the National Policy Framework, Vistas of Prosperity and Splendor. The government expects to provide drinking water facility to 4.7 million families in the next 4 years. The project is being implemented with local and foreign funds and will require the laying of 40,000 kilometers of new water supply pipes. The project is to be completed at half the cost of spent so far on water supply. Water generation and conservation and water source identification are some of the features of the program. Tree planting is also planned to ensure the conservation of water sources. In the Colombo district alone, 45% of total water supply was wasted due to water leaks. Laying of new water supply pipes in the past few months has resulted in reducing it to 15%. In order to preserve the water, new pipes are now being laid to replace old ones that cause water leaking, officials said. During the meeting, the President also focused attention on resolving the issues of the employment of the community water projects. It was also agreed that the Road Development Authority and the Water Supply Board must jointly implement development plans and the aim of preventing wastage of national wealth in the process of laying of water pipes damage the roads. It was highlighted that it could help saving about 30% of the total cost of meeting the country's drinking water needs. It was discussed in detail regarding the rainwater harvesting and the expansion of capacity of tanks and reservoirs in the island and construction of a new tank and a reservoir network. The new plan also includes the introduction of projects with the new canals and pipes to carry water to water-deficient areas. Minister Vasudevan Nanayakkara, State Minister Sanath Nishant, Head of the Presidential Task Force on Economic Revival Basil Rajapaksa, Secretary to the President P.B. Jayasundara, Secretaries to Cabinet and State Ministries, officials of line institutions and representatives of community water projects were present at this discussion.
The government has decided to upgrade all roadways maintained under the provincial councils and identified roadways maintained under local government bodies. Addressing a discussion held at Temple Trees today, Chairman of the Presidential Task Force on Economic Restoration and Poverty Alleviation, Basil Rajapaksa, stated that the task will be implemented under the project to upgrade 100,000 kilometers of roadways. Thereby, main roadways that connect to two main roads and roadways connecting main towns will be upgraded under this project. In the implementation of the project, coordination between the Water Supply and Drainage Board and the Ceylon Electricity Board is necessary, as when excavations take place when reconstructing roadways, attention should be given to the water supply and other facilities. A reconstruction of roadways will be carried out according to a priority list. Attention will also be focused on growing useful trees and on either side of the roadways for environmental balance. The importance of obtaining the advice and assistance of the Department of Agriculture and the Central Environment Authority was emphasized. Environmental committees will be created in every village and will be tasked with tending to the saplings planted in every village in the country. Under the vision of prosperity, the project will be implemented upon the directives of the Ministry of Roadways and the State Ministry of Rural Roads and Infrastructure. The discussion was also attended by Minister Johnston Fernando, State Minister Nima Lansa and provincial governors. State Minister Ajit Niwad Kabral says the government restricted certain imports to avoid a possible foreign exchange crisis due to the economic impact caused by COVID-19. However, the government provided exceptions for raw materials, pharmaceuticals and oil, he said. Sri Lanka German Business Council of the Ceylon Chamber of Commerce organized a forum today to discuss the current economic trends in the country. Theme of the forum was overview of financial and economic policies of the government of Sri Lanka. State Minister for Finance, Capital Market and State Enterprise Reforms Ajit Niwad Kabral was the keynote speaker.
There are specific difficult situations right now, but those are COVID related. What is COVID related need to be taken away from the rest of the matters that need to be enhanced in time. So we have actually got to understand that certain restrictions that we are placing are not restrictions that we are placing because it's our policy, but it's a reaction. Understand that part, because that is part and parcel of the reaction to this current situation. I went through the growth rates of so many countries in the second and the second quarter. There are countries which have fallen 40% in certain regions. 40%, 23%, 18% contraction of their economies during the last 3 months. So it's a tough time that the world has experienced. So every country is going through this pain. So during that period, we have, I think, come out reasonably well. There have been tough times for certain industries. We have seen job losses that have taken place in certain industries, particularly in the tourism industry. But that's not anything that is due to the government policy, but it's due to the government reaction to the situation which has been caused elsewhere. So if we can distinguish between these two situations, I think then we will realize that we need to take government forward as well as the country forward in the normal way. But at the same time, we've got to deal with this current crisis in another manner. So that's the sometimes difficulty that we have to understand, and hopefully we would.
And meanwhile, lawyers state that the proposed 20th Amendment to the Constitution strengthens national security. They say that weaknesses in national security intensified to the level which brought about the Easter Sunday attacks due to the 19th Amendment. The Gazette notification pertaining to the proposed 20th Amendment was issued yesterday. The proposed 20th Amendment recommends a 5-member Parliamentary Council which will replace the Constitutional Council introduced by the 19th Amendment. The proposed Parliamentary Council will comprise the Prime Minister, the Speaker of the Parliament, the Opposition Leader and a representative, each nominated by Prime Minister and the Opposition Leader. The clause incorporated in the 19th Amendment to the Constitution preventing the dissolution of Parliament until the completion of 4.5 years of its term has been removed, and a clause enabling the President to dissolve the House after 1 year has been incorporated into the proposed 20th Amendment. Although legal actions cannot be instituted against the President, the proposed 20th Amendment mandates that the President be answerable to Parliament. The lawyers say that issues caused by the 19th Amendment when appointing individuals to top posts have been addressed in the proposed 20th Amendment. Welcome back, and we now move with more local stories. We now bring you the special segment Red Light. Many countries are still affected by the spread of the COVID-19 virus. Sri Lanka has been able to contain the spread of the pandemic as a result of the proper leadership and the possible accomplishment of duties on the part of the relevant officials. However, health authorities have advised the public to further adhere to health and safety guidelines. Therefore, our news team carried out observations in several areas on adherence to guidelines. Globally, 26,500,317 persons are presently suffering due to the virus, whilst the number of COVID-19 related deaths reported stands at 873,786. The highest number of COVID-19 positive cases detected within 24 hours was reported from neighbouring India. In Sri Lanka, COVID-19 positive cases are being detected from amongst returnees to the island. Although a community transmission situation of the virus is currently not taking place in society, the public need to be aware that the COVID-19 threat has not been eliminated altogether. This is for the attention of the general public. Consider, if you do not fulfill your responsibility and are complacent and pay non-adherence to health and safety guidelines, would you not be beckoning the deadly disease to return amongst you? The red light flashes for your attention. With that, we conclude tonight's news. Do it just tomorrow at the very same time. Stay safe. Good night.
Good night.